So this is going to be a bit of a different video than usual. It's not a hairstyling tutorial. I'm actually just going to be chatting a bit about the day-to-day of running Poseidon, like as an e-com founder, just for anybody who is like thinking of doing something similar or looks at Poseidon and thinks that they'd want to, or looks at my life and my job and thinks that they would enjoy that sort of career. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not selling a course or mentorship or any of that shite. Like I've got, my full-time job is Poseidon. I wouldn't have time to do any of that. So I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I've just got a big drive up here. We're off to the Fulfillment Centre in Northern Ireland, 3-hour drive this morning, and wanted to be a bit productive with the time. So thought I'd just go over a few kind of like pros and cons of my job, just for anybody who's interested. So I guess I'll just start with one of the pros is like the freedom. I guess everybody talks about that, but when they talk about that, they talk about it on more of a macro level, like doing these big trips abroad and stuff like that. And yeah, like that's a big pull factor for a lot of people, but I want to talk about like more of the micro things. Like for example, like I've been pretty sick this week, been feeling rotten, and on Friday I slept through my alarm, and if I was working for somebody else, that would have been the end of the world. Like I would have been like late for work, and it just would have ruined my entire day. But because I work for myself, seen that, and I was like, bollocks, okay, right, well, I'll just work I slept until 10:30 and was at my desk by 11, and I was like, right, well, I'll just work till 7 today instead of 5. Obviously that's not like every business, like there is people with sales calls and hours and stuff, but with e-com it tends to be pretty flexible. You can kind of like sporadically do your work and stuff as well. Like for me now, if I can't sleep at night, it's just a bit of an inconvenience. It doesn't like scare me. I remember like when I was working cutting hair and I knew I had to be up at a certain time and I'd be on my feet for the whole day, I'd actually get like super anxious like if I wasn't in bed, and then that would just, and same with school or university, if I knew I had to be in a lecture at a certain point, I'd get really anxious if I wasn't asleep by a certain time. Now it's just not the case. Yeah, of course it's still an inconvenience. I'd like to be up at 8 at my desk at 9 to finish as early as possible, but I don't have to, is the point. It's brilliant, and that translates into other things. Like I was saying, I'm quite sick, so like I'm just not putting too much pressure on myself this week. Like I'll get better, and it'll be grand, and I'll work around it. And it also translates into other things. Like if the other week, for example, like I love golf, right? And it can be tricky to get tee times, and it can be expensive to get tee times on the weekends, and it can be really slow, whatever. But like if I plan properly, I can delegate certain work to Katie during the week, or I can do a bit more hours on a certain day, and I can take a half day on like a Wednesday and go play golf for the rest of the day. Like it breaks up the week, and that does take discipline and practice. It's been a couple of years of me, refining that balance, but now I kind of got it locked down, I like to think, and I have a lot of flexibility in my life, and it does feel like I own my own life. You only get 80, 90 years on earth until you hopefully spend eternity in heaven. But yeah, like I love that aspect of my life, that I kind of do whatever I want, whenever I want. That's definitely a pro. Moving on to the first con would just be like extreme stress. Like you tend to take your work home with you, and your problems tend to be magnified beyond what you'd see in like a normal job. Obviously everybody has problems in their job, but when you own the company and there's problems with the company, it's all responsibility and your responsibility only. Nobody is there above you you can't delegate that. And especially if you have staff, you're actually supposed to solve the problem for them, and you have people reliant on you. So that can be a super stressful thing. I've only one staff member, but I've also got the fulfillment center and my manufacturers and stuff, and they do rely on payments to pay their staff and pay their bills and stuff as well. And of course you want to maintain those relationships. So if you're having any sort of like financial difficulty in the business, it can create a lot of stress that you tend to take home with you. And luckily I've been free from that for a couple months. On a background like September, October, I did have like a lot of financial stress. I took out a huge purchase order that in hindsight I probably shouldn't have. It's grand now because it's almost paid off, and I should have it actually paid off like this week, and then I'll be sitting on a load of stock ready to sell, and that stock will shift eventually. But it just put me under a load of pressure for like 3 months, where like I was pretty much just eat, sleep, pay off, debt, repeat. That was a really stressful time in my life, and you end up taking it home with you, and it affects your sleep. I was probably sleeping 5 hours a night at the time. Yeah, and there's another con there that I'll go into again, but I'll go back to another pro. Another pro I'd say would be decision-making power within the business. When you're working for a company, you might have the final say on certain things depending on your position, but when you own your own company, you do learn things a lot faster and you fail a lot quicker because you have the full decision-making power. So if you think something's a good idea and it's not, you'll find out very quickly because you will make the decision, and then you'll find that out, whereas you might be deprived from that otherwise because there's higher ups who are a lot smarter than you and a lot more experienced to tell you why that's a bad idea, and you won't go ahead with it. And for a lot of people, they actually kind of learn things the easy way, and they're able to be told. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. I have mentors that I listen to big time, but I also do, like, in certain situations, making my own mistake. Obviously, to be smart about that for big macro decisions, it is best to definitely not learn things the hard way, to listen to mentors, listen to people who are smarter than you, more experienced, go from there. But I would say say like the decision-making power is fantastic. It helps you learn a lot quicker. And I find a great deal of creativity in my job, being able to make decisions on the ads and stuff like that, deciding what products. It really like stimulates your brain, and because it's all yours, you do find like this attachment to it that genuinely in the same way you would have to a family member or a partner. That's how I feel about Poseidon. Like it's almost like an alter ego of myself. It's an extension of myself, which I love, which gives you a lot of passion for the day-to-day running of things. So that's definitely another pro. Back to the cons now. It's extremely lonely. For years, before I had the office, before I could afford the office, I would literally just wake up. My desk was in my bedroom. So I would just sit there in a room by myself. My parents would be gone to work, just at home. And it was so depressing. Not around anybody, not talking to anybody, not even leaving the house. That was not nice. It can be very lonely, and that extends into other things. Like if there's problems in the business, like I was talking about earlier, it can be very difficult to find a solid network of people that kind of understand what you're going through. Like I have my friends from home that I love to bit, all of them, but they are all in very different careers, and a lot of them are in college. I do talk to my friends about work, but they can't really give practical advice on what to do about situations within reason, because they're not doing it. They're not running their own business, or they haven't faced these problems in their own careers yet. And it is great like to just get advice on and just get encouragement to keep going. And they also say, yeah, I'm proud of you. You know, that's all good, but it can be very hard, especially in the base of entrepreneurs in Ireland, because so many people are bullshitters. So many people are just kind of entrepreneurs. They're not actually doing anything. They've no revenue behind them. And also, like for me, I kind of find it hard to network with people. Like I find a lot of people are really smart entrepreneurs, but like that's their whole life. They're not really interesting people outside of that. That's not people I like to associate with either. It's hard to strike a balance between people who are doing something for themselves. They're in Ireland. They're cool guys. You know, they're good to chat to. You'd go for a pint with them and you do enjoy their company. The lonely aspect of it, that's definitely another con. Last pro I would go over is I'm going to talk about like the financial side of things as a pro and a con. Financially, in the long run, dictating your own income is so brilliant. Deciding how much you get paid a month, you can really like cultivate your own lifestyle instead of relying on how much money you're being paid by an external company. And there are ways to dictate that. It's just a lot slower. You know, like if you want to go make more money, you might need to go and complete a master's first. That could take a year. Or you might be asking for a promotion, and in certain companies that could take 6 months to a year to come into effect. Whereas if your business does well, starts making more profit, you can as soon as the next month or the next week be like, I'm taking more money out of the company. That's obviously not the smartest thing to do. It's better to balance that a bit better, and if you have excess profit, to reinvest that back in to see more growth. That depends what point you are in your company. Are you still trying to scale? Is it more of a lifestyle for you? Do you have multiple sources of income, and is this a secondary one? I don't know, your situation. In the long term, dictating your own income, and especially being a company owner and being able to contribute to your pension from the company, is just going to leave you in a much more flexible financial position throughout the course of your career and your life than you would have had otherwise. Although I'm kind of still on the very like front end of that, I'm very looking forward to my future as an entrepreneur to be able to have that freedom. Yeah, definitely like dictating your own income. It definitely like puts a bit of fire up your arse as well, to be like, right, yeah, if I start working smarter and making better decisions within the company and lowering costs, selling more, I will benefit from this in the long run. Show that on the camera. Like, this is a side note. Look at these absolute fucking Dell boys here. This is driving in Ireland, lads. Seriously, my gosh. Here I am talking about like financial freedom and being able to travel and stuff like that, and I'm here fucking driving behind Dumb and Dumber here, whatever county we're in. I think we're in Louth now, or somewhere, or Derry or something, I don't know. Anyway, back to the finances. I will go to the cons. If you're working a job, you're either getting an hourly rate or you're getting a yearly salary. The more you work, you get a bonus. The more value you bring to the company, you can usually go and get a promotion from that. With your own company, it tends to work very differently. The finances of the business are a lot less linear, and it's a lot more complex, and that's what I've learned the hard way. When you're in times of abundance and there's money coming into the company, a lot of money, for Poseidon that tends to kind of be the summertime. A lot of people tend to pay themselves more, take more money out of the company at that point, and that's probably a bad idea to do, because that leaves the business kind of short for times of downturn. Like for us, that's kind of like September, October tend to be a bit slow. January, February, like right now, is quite slow. So luckily over Christmas, I kind of left some reserves in the company. I didn't overpay myself. So there is cash in the company now that if I had paid myself, I'd be in a really sticky situation right now. My point about it being a con is that how I gave the example there of working in a company and it being linear. It almost works backwards when you own your own business. When you're doing more profit, you want to be paying yourself less and leaving more in the company to scale. Obviously, it depends what position you're in. Whereas it can often be the case that if you're in a time of downturn, you are working your fucking arse off and you're really stressed and it's a horrible time, and you can literally show up 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, and be thinking about work while you're on taking a shit all day, every day, and get compensated absolutely zero at the end of the month because the company needs money. You as the business owner have to put the business in front of you and pay yourself last, which can be very demoralizing, especially because you don't know when that time is going to end. You don't know when that day is going to come, or if it's ever going to come that you're going to see the end of the tunnel. It can be very demoralizing, especially if you've got people behind you that count on you or rely on you. It can be very scary. It can cause a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety there, which isn't nice. It's often when you've got good systems in place and you're kind of not doing much work that you can justify paying yourself the most. And then you get this weird imposter syndrome where everything's going well and you're making loads of money and you're doing no work. It's a really weird dichotomy that you can literally have yourself doing minimal work, making loads of money, and you can have yourself shut away and not away from the rest of the world, absolutely grinding on the business and making nothing. That's what I found anyway. That would be kind of 3 pros and 3 cons I would give in general for running the business. If you like this style of video, I can definitely make more. These are super easy to pump out. Last thing I'd leave, if you're in that kind of position where you're discouraged and you're scared and you're thinking what if, and you're almost thinking of giving up, just remember that most people don't have the courage to do what you're doing right now, to really put it all on black, and you should be proud of yourself because it's so cliche, but you're only going to be here once. You only have 60, 70 years left in you, and you might as well do it your own way. You might as well do everything you want to do and don't settle for any less. If you're in that position, fair play, keep going, work through it, make it work, do whatever you have to do. Thanks for watching. See you later.